is ended. The Atari 8-bit podcast.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. John Harris published one program for the Atari computer, Can't Quit, a game that was published by Atari Program Exchange. Can't Quit first appeared in the summer 1983 APX catalog. It was the only program published by this John Harris, although he has the same name as the John Harris who created Jawbreaker, whom I previously interviewed. I'm going to read the description of Can't Quit from the APX catalog. Can't Quit by John Harris, recommended for ages 8 and up, written in BASIC and machine language. Strategize against the odds in a dice game. Success at Can't Quit comes from knowing just when to be bold and when to fold. Since nobody ever does know, this game has surprise after surprise for its players. Luck certainly helps, but it isn't everything. Each roll of the dice forces you to decide, quit now or take a chance. You'll see who's cautious and who's reckless as you watch the progress of your game tokens across the board. You can play against another player or against the computer. The diamond-shaped game board is composed of 11 rows of boxes, one row for each number from 2 through 12. When it's your turn, you will use a joystick to roll 4 dice. Then you decide how to pair those dice. If you choose a 3 and a 7, for example, game tokens move one space to the right on rows 3 and 7. The object of the game is to have your tokens move completely to the right on 3 rows, or 4 if you choose. It sounds, at first, as if all you have to do is keep rolling dice until you move completely to the right, but it's not that simple. If you push your luck too far, you wipe out all the progress you've made. You have to resist taking the last turn before you've gone too far. You can play by hunches and guesses, or you can strategize on probabilities. It's fun any way you play. The author invites written comments and questions. Review comments. This game tests your familiarity with the odds of combinations on dice. There are opportunities to strategize. Joystick use makes the game easy to play. The colorful screen is attractive. Requires Atari Basic Language cartridge, 1 Atari joystick controller. Order information. It was available on cassette, which required 16K of RAM, or disc, which required 32K of RAM. Either way, it cost $24.95. It was APX catalog number 20220. This interview took place on July 5th, 2018.
When I got out of the service in 1969, they put us through a program called Transition, because back in those days, there was a glut of folks getting out of the service without any kind of vocational training that was functional. And I took a test, and they said, "Oh, you should go learn computer programming." I had no real interest in that, especially, but I did. I went to the training, and when I got out, I got a job programming in assembler language on a thing called a PDP-8 with 4K of memory. Mm-hmm. And I did that for a number of years, and along the way, fell in love with the Atari scheme of things, and one thing led to another, and I began to write various games in Atari Basic, and it used a compiler, but and that one particular game called Can't Stop, I think the Parker Brothers folks put it out, I really liked, and it was kind of visual. It's a board game, and so I programmed that in Atari Basic using that used a compiler, and it took maybe a year and a half. And along the way, I conferred with those folks at Parker Brothers just to make sure there wasn't any problems legally, and they had next to no interest in what I was doing. So I went ahead and finished the program and sent it into the Atari Exchange, and that's how we got here from there.
Oh, neat. So it took you about a year to make the game.
A year and a half, somewhere in that. I never really kept particular records of it or anything at the time. It was kind of just a fun experiment, but it fell into place. I got a friend who wrote the jingle that it plays, and and I was a good friend with Sid Meier's, who in his day became internationally famous for the various programs he put together.
Sure.
He did the V-blank routine, which enables it to play music while you're playing the game and things like that. So
Wow.
it was pretty fun.
Neat. And the person credited with the sound is Jay Trotta. Is that your friend who did the music?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, he did. He's a musician, and he did that little jingle it plays. I don't know if you've ever played it or not, but it plays a cute little jingle that he wrote for me.
Why did you decide to program this game on the computer?
I played it often with my girlfriend. It's a very addicting, fun game. And somewhere along the way, I just started in my mind playing with the idea, because it's played on a board that looks like a stop sign, and there's little I don't know how you call them, little slots you put your tokens in as you move across the board. So it's visually pretty interesting, and it occurred to me that I could make the Atari, which is great for doing graphic things via the Antic chip and all that. So I started piddling around with it and managed to get the board up on the screen and all that sort of thing, and then moving the tokens along and all of that. And Sid Meier's and I both submitted our game. He wrote a game that was an auto racing game that was really nifty, and we sent them both in. His got rejected and mine got accepted, so that was my moment of glory.
Wow.
I beat out the great Sid Meier on that one time only, and he went on. I don't know if you're familiar or not. He did Civilization and a bunch of other games over the years and became a multi-millionaire for his efforts.
Sure.
As well.
Well, you may have won the sprint, but I think he won the marathon.
Absolutely.
Are you guys still buddies?
Say that again?
Are you guys still friends?
You know, I don't. I got out of the computer business. I guess I was maybe around 40, and I fell in love with psychology, and I'd had my own children by then, and I went back and got training to be a child therapist, and so I kind of went off on another tangent, and over the years lost track with Sid and scores of other people that were in the computer business. Jay Trotta was one of them. He was a programmer there also. So no, it's been maybe 30 years, I would say, since I had any contact with Sid.
So how well did this game sell?
I think I figured out one day that I worked for about 15 cents an hour.
Wow.
I made a few $100s. This got on the shelves really in the twilight of the Atari scheme of things. I think piracy more than any other thing really caused them to struggle. And back then, anybody who was into computers made it a challenge to figure out how to pirate stuff and copy it and all that sort of thing. Their protection systems weren't very robust back then, as opposed to nowadays where it's a lot more difficult. But at any rate, it was a fun thing, and I got a copy of it to put on my wall, and I don't even have an Atari computer anymore, but it was a challenge to do it and to make it all work well and all that sort of thing.
Do you remember any particular challenge from it?
Hard to pin it into one particular area. Graphically, it wasn't that difficult. In terms of the logic of the game, using BASIC, you're familiar with BASIC, I imagine.
Sure, yeah.
And BASIC is like an amazing tool for doing anything that uses arithmetic logic, and that's what I had to get a handle on, and it took most of the time just to get all that to work, because as you played each turn, when it was your turn when you played, you always had the option to stop, leave your tokens where they were, and then turn it over to the next person's turn. If you kept going and you threw a set of dice that you could not play, you lost your entire turn. So the logic of all that doesn't sound complex, but in the computer scheme of things, I had to keep track of everything, so I knew how to update the person's turn if they were successful. Ultimately, you want to get your tokens all the way across the board, and then you win the game. And it plays a little winning the game jingle kind of thing and all that sort of thing. It was just I can't say any of it was really, really logically difficult. It just took time. And this is something I worked on an hour here, an hour there, and that sort of thing. But before it was all over, I think I put about 1,000 hours into it.
Holy cow. Did you get any feedback from Atari Program Exchange or from any of your users? Well, tell me.
I did. The Program Exchange people were very flattering. And all that sort of thing. With people, I didn't get any feedback via Atari from the people who bought the program. What I did was I participated in a local Atari users group at one of the local stores, and I went in there and I ran into a small number of people, but people who were when they made the connection that was me and my game. And I always had to struggle with the fact that there's another John Harris who wrote a magnificent little program. I think it was called Candyland or something like that. But
Jawbreaker.
That's it. Yeah. And I never met the guy or had any communication with him, but that program was wonderful, and people were forever going through the dialogue of figuring out that I wasn't him, and he was a West Coast guy somewhere, I think. But at any rate, I got positive feedback from people who said, it's very much the same mentality as playing the board game, but it's on your computer, and which for many people is intriguing, and they enjoy that and all that sort of thing.
Good. There were two John Harrises in the Atari world, and if you'll forgive me, you were the less famous one. And,
no, that's true. I'm sure the other John Harris made a bundle, because his game was out long before mine was, and people like that, that eye-hand, what do you want to call that? The video game scheme of things, right. And as opposed to a board game on a computer, which is a different mentality, really.
The confusion continued to me trying to find you for this interview because, first of all, John Harris is a very common name. And,
yes.
And secondly, every time I searched for John Harris Atari, well, I kept getting him over and over and over again. So, did you write any other programs for the Atari computer?
No.
I mean, just even personal, unpublished stuff?
Oh, I wrote things like for my children. I did a little skit where I put strawberry shortcake. If you had small children, you'd know what that was about. But at any rate, my daughter, when she was little, she was enthralled with that. So I do this graphic, and what it was kind of like Hangman. You typed in it gave you a word that it obscured, and then she would type in letters, and when she got the letters right, then it would build this little strawberry shortcake thing. It was very primitive, I guess is the kindest word I can think of, and I never considered trying to publish it or anything like that. I mean, the Atari was very easy to program. The 6502 and the Antic chip together made it pretty easy to do graphic things on it.
Yes, it did. Any stories or anything that come to mind that we haven't talked about yet?
The Atari folks went down the tubes, and I changed professions, so I didn't really pursue anything. It would have been interesting to see if I could have done it on a PC. I don't even know if the tools were there, if they have BASIC and things like that. And of course, as you know, over the years, the PC world, from its relatively primitive beginnings, has gone nuts. I mean, I started programming on machines that had 4K of memory. People don't even know what K means, and everything now is megabytes and gigabytes and terabytes, and I'm sure it'll keep going because memories have exploded in terms of availability and cost and things like that.
Yes, indeed. Tell me about what you do today.
Over the years, I was a pediatric psychologist at Franklin Square Hospital and other places in this East Baltimore County area. And somewhere along the way, I got hooked up with one of my former teachers who was the chairman of the psychology department here at Towson University. And I had been training students in the field placement program at University of Maryland over at Franklin Square. And I said, I'd love to teach in a classroom. I think I could be good at that. And that's how it all started. I actually had no training as a teacher. I was a clinician. And so I came here, and that was 28 years ago, and started teaching, just a class here and a class there kind of thing. And now it's all I do. I'm 71 now. And so I retired from clinical work 15 years ago, and have just been teaching school because it's fun and I like the kids, and they pay us ridiculously well for what we do, frankly. And so, and my kids have grown up, and I have a grandchild now, so that I really put most of my work in my second half of my life to working with children and that sort of thing.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
If you could send a message to the Atari computer users that still exist, and you can right now, what would you tell them?
Goodness, I wouldn't even know where to start. Just to congratulate them for persevering through it and in its ups and downs, which from their point of view probably are meaningless, but in the world of the Atari people and the company and its struggles to stay afloat and all of that has had to have been frustrating for a lot of people. But I would just congratulate them. I think it's an amazing little machine, and what was it, the 800 and the 400, I think it was. The 400 had a membrane keyboard. It was terrible,
Yep.
but it worked fine. And so that would be it. It would be interesting to run into people who still use the Ataris and so forth and so on.
Great. Thank you. I think I have what I need.
All right, sir. Well, I hope it helps. Take care.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute, there are two ways you can help. You can help fund these interviews directly by contributing to my Patreon. A small monthly contribution will help offset the expenses of making these oral history interviews. Contribute at patreon.com/Savitz. Or make a tax-deductible contribution to the Internet Archive, a nonprofit digital library that has done incredible things to preserve computer history. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate. Thanks.